So by decreasing myocardial oxygen demand, we have beta blockers. Slows down the heart rate. Remember, the two major factors or components or constituents of your work of the heart demand dependent on heart rate and the ability to pump, right? So the heart rate, why not try to give a beta blocker, decrease heart rate? Nitrates, what do they do? Well, we talked about how you could have vascular resistance, which is increased, which it does because of sympathetic activity. And so therefore, nitrates might cause vasodilation. Now you tell me, be careful. How do you decrease your afterload? Is it by working on the arterial side, or is it by working on the venous side? And you will tell me correctly, working on the arterial side. Good. So by doing that, you are then relieving some of the resistance, aren't you? And what about morphine? It decreases the pain. Help reduce the adrenergic drive with morphine. What about the supply? Let's give oxygen, huh? You have to give oxygen. What about that clot? It's already too big, so why not try to get in there and bam, get rid of it, huh? You bust that clot. They call this a blood thinner. And how important is that concept? Very. In hemodynamics, all the different ways in which you can bust that clot. Aspirin alternatives, including clopidogrel, right? Quote unquote Plavix. A clopidogrel inhibits your ADP. And if your ADP is not released from your platelet, then you can't express what? Remember this from pharmacology. Pay attention. You can't express your glycoprotein 2B3A. Wow. You don't have that. You don't have proper aggregation, do you? What else might you want to use? Something like silistazole. You have a couple others as well. IV heparin, anticoagulant, prevents thrombus formation. So at some point, let's say that you want to use a blood thinner in which you're trying to bust that clot and you have coags or coagulation factors. You have important options here, including heparin. Heparin works through antithrombin 3, as you should know. And antithrombin 3 is going to do exactly that, knock out thrombin. Or you have direct-acting thrombin inhibitors, don't you? And this then brings you to important topics and drugs such as dabigatran, direct thrombin inhibitor, or apixaban. So you got a couple of these that you want to pay attention to. Why? Because you want to try to increase the supply of oxygen to your dying heart so that you can then shift over into aerobic glycolysis and proper ATP production. Continuing our discussion, nitrates. Now, rapid reperfusion could be an issue. You want to be careful here. Now, pay attention. So you had this clot. Huh? How quickly does this clot develop? Your clot was developing, and over years and years and years. And at some point in time, the tissue distally, so if this is my clot and my tissue distally, became accustomed to that decreased perfusion, didn't it? And then all of a sudden, that clot became so big, and you're going to go in there and use something like a plasminogen analog, right? Some type of plasminogen activator. And you give a tissue plasminogen activator such as Alteplase or what have you, and you bust that clot. My goodness gracious, water is good for you. But you drink out of a fire hydrant, it will kill you. So now that tissue distal to the stenosis is drinking all this oxygen. All of a sudden, oh my goodness, this excess oxygen that's being introduced to the tissue, do you think that maybe perhaps some of that oxygen might lose its electron and become a free radical? Exactly. What's that called? Reactive oxygen species. Welcome to reperfusion, but we're specifically referring to reperfusion injury. And calcium play a huge role. We'll talk about that. All of this is to come. But you're trying to do that. You're trying to induce rapid reperfusion. You have some of your drugs, such as your thrombolytics, your TPAs, and also you try to go in there and say that the drugs aren't working well enough, or you want to go in there and really make sure that you prevent further thrombi formation. And so therefore you think about using percutaneous intervention, and you either have angioplasty, in which you try to balloon, and while you're in there, you try to place a stent as well. Worst case scenario, you can't go in there and place a stent, then you have to do bypass surgery.